Greetings, this is Rosalind Parks with National Network View News. On tonight's broadcast, Global View weekly contributor Brian E. Muhammad will talk about the accomplishments and life of President Kaunda of Zambia, the last African giant mourned and lauded as a champion for the motherland. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam's work globally will be another topic of discussion with our contributor, Brian E. Muhammad. And we will also interview farmer Alyssa Ward of Ward's Farm, located in New Jersey, about her cut flower farm on our Engine of the Nation segment. Before we get into the top news, let's do a recap of the current events we've recently covered. Weekly contributor Dr. Akili Muhammad spoke with me on the rising number of COVID-19 cases and deaths, whether unvaccinated people are the problem and whether vaccination is the solution. What are the COVID-19 cases looking like in America and around the world at this time?
Well, that's very interesting. I was looking at the Worldometer today, and the information that is up today is from days. It's a lag in the actual report. So the date you can find when you go to something like the Worldometer, and there are days in between the actual information and the date that you are actually going to find it. And it literally said that in America there were 0 new cases, but yet there was an article that somebody sent me as well today that spoke about the rising cases in Missouri. And they're extremely worried about the increase in cases and the fact that society is back open. But as we just heard in that clip, this article similarly was trying to say that unvaccinated people are the cause, or potentially are going to be the cause, in this new increase in number of cases and deaths and all the other sequelae that come from it.
We also touched on the U.S. government and mass media's push for vaccination while keeping the public blind to possible inexpensive treatments for COVID-19. The U.S. government and mass media are keeping the public blind to possible inexpensive treatments for COVID-19 while at the same time pushing for vaccines. Why are they refusing to promote these other treatments or therapies that can fight off this disease?
Yes, I think that speaks directly to the ending of our last segment, and that's about the money that's associated with these vaccines. Mm-hmm. Because we can start with, the treatments that are pretty cheap, but let's start with the ones that are free, right? Like the sun. There are, some scientists that are saying that you can get vitamin D directly for the sun. And there are, of course, many reports from all over the world, many different scientists that are coming to the conclusion that having a low vitamin D level greatly increases your chances for catching this infection. So getting out and getting some sunshine is just about you finding the time and making the decision to do so.
Later in our conversation, Dr. Akili also answered questions about stress and how it affects immune health. Does stress really and truly affect the immune system?
Absolutely. The stress and its long-term effect on the body is very similar to overworking anything else, right? You buy a brand new car and they give you the instructions on when to get the oil changed, when to rotate your tires, check the water, other things of that nature. And you just get it in every day and drive it as hard as you can, never check any of those things. That car is going to wear out quite fast compared to the person who does all those things and drives it more moderately. These bodies are made to work perfectly. And unfortunately, most of us don't eat the right foods, don't get enough rest, don't drink enough water. And when we talk about stress and those hormones that clip was talking about cause everything to be in high overdrive. And so if you're not eating the right foods, you don't have the right nutrition, you're not drinking enough water, so the body's dehydrated, toxic from bad things, bad environment. And then you add stress on top of that, the body's deteriorating pretty quickly.
NNV News anchor Willie Muhammad's monthly contributor, Dr. Gary Clark, along with Brian Turner, shared their thoughts and insight on the upcoming Universal Hip Hop Museum scheduled to open in 2023.
So Do you believe that such a museum is even needed?
I think the beauty of any museum is that we get to tell the story of people as they experience life, especially for African Americans in inner city, as we understand hip hop being born in the Bronx, but taking over the country. And now you can't turn on the TV show. You can't watch a commercial. You can't go into a store and buy an item or be a consumer without hip hop in some way, shape, or form being a part of that experience. So I think the hip hop museum will definitely go into a point of reference for individuals who want to know more. But I think specifically, it even gives us an anchor institution in terms of the African American experience in the 20th century, post the Civil Rights Movement, post slavery, where we begin to actually tell our own stories. And if we think about historically, that was one of the things that was lost through slavery, that we stopped telling our own stories. So I'm very, very excited by this opportunity, just like with any museum, whether it be the National African American Museum in DC. Anytime Black people get to tell their own story, I'm for it.
Willie Muhammad questioned Dr. Gary Clark and Brian Turner about their views on whether the passing of the legislation to make Juneteenth a national federal holiday was more about symbolism than substance.
The popularity of Juneteenth seemed to dramatically increase from my perspective over these last 3 years. Have you all noticed the same? If so, why do you think it has become so big?
Well, it's taken on the greatest significance because it is indeed important, and it's now on it's now part of it's on the national menu and part of the national discussion. It's needed and necessary. It was stated by some recent academics who said, "Wait a minute, part of the narrative that we hear about Juneteenth is not as true as you may think. That many of those who were enslaved during that period in Texas actually knew that they were free, but they were held captive." And were not allowed to be free. And so when the general came in to let them know, the general came with guns to tell them that you need to free these people and you need to enforce the law of the land. But getting back to your statement in terms of where we are and what the impact of Juneteenth is highly important because symbolism has value in American society. We recognize the nature of symbolism.
Finally, contributors Dr. Clark and Brian Turner also discussed the recent uptick in applications and student enrollment at historically Black colleges and universities.
What do you attribute the increase in enrollment at HBCUs to?
The Donald J. Trump.
I figured that.
But I only give him that credit because I think he's helped to awaken an understanding amongst our community that we actually have to support our own entities, right? And I say that in the grand scheme of things that for so long, and I remember my own grandmother explaining to me how growing up, she was told that white ice was colder. And in my mind, as a graduate of Isidore Newman High School, where I understood that ice freezes at the same temperature, no matter who puts it in the freezer, it baffled me that this could be told to people and they would either believe it or accept it. And so I think we found ourselves in a very precarious, but also profitable moment as HBCUs that we can come to understand that it is so important for us to provide a learning environment, but also a social and cultural experience that our young people will actually really appreciate.
On this week's I Have a Testimony, Willie Muhammad's guest, Sister Kiana Muhammad, and her daughter, Sister Aaliyah Muhammad, expressed the benefits of being educated in a school started by members of the Nation of Islam, Aaliyah's MGT drill team performance, health challenges, and meeting with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
What are your thoughts about that whole meeting and even the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan praying for you and your family?
When I go think about that moment, I'm just sitting, as she was talking, I just went back to that moment years ago in 2018, sitting in this room, and I'm trying not to cry, but it was, I can't even put it into words. It's hard to put into words of how I felt and how the rest of my family must have felt. It just, if I can impossibly possibly put it in one word, it'll be grateful. It'll be thankful. I'm just thankful and grateful for that opportunity and to be able to be in front of and be prayed for by the man of God is wanting a lifetime opportunity, obviously. And I was just, I can't even really describe how I felt at that moment.
Covering for NNV News anchor Robert Muhammad, I sat down with our education contributor Tony Muhammad to discuss the recent comments by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who equated the teaching of critical race theory with the teaching of students to attack police officers. Governor Ron DeSantis recently added fuel to the discussion about the banned critical race theory curriculum. He equated the teaching of CRT with the teaching of students to attack police officers. Is DeSantis's political rhetoric a dog whistle tactic to support the whitewashing of the school curriculum?
Absolutely. And there, where you're dealing with, see, I'm actually thankful for that type of exaggerated discourse by Ron DeSantis, because we have to reflect ourselves when we're exaggerating historical facts to prove what we argue in terms of Black history and our own condition in America and what we experience in the course of world history. We can't deal with exaggeration. Ron DeSantis is absolutely dealing with exaggeration, and exaggeration is a lie.
I also had weekly contributor Charles Muhammad back on to educate us and provide us with tips from the book How to Eat to Live and the benefits derived from drinking pure milk and eating pure wheat products. How do we get pure milk products? Most of us have grocery stores or convenience stores. The milk is already pasteurized and in a jug for us. Is there any way we can get something that is pure and better for us?
Yes, the milkman is making a comeback. So you could sit tight for a while, because even though certain white people have a problem with the critical race theory, they are, fiending for milk nowadays. So they are bringing back milk into the communities. I mean, the pure milk, because there's some of us who remember when milk was delivered to our doorstep and we have to set our bottles, right? That was a universal delivery system. It was essential for it to be in our diet. Now, many of us feel that the intolerance level for lactose in the Black community is up to 80%. That's a myth.
Cryptocurrency enthusiast Vernon Muhammad updated us on what's new on the blockchain, wealth building, and expressed some different ways we can begin to educate ourselves on the digital currency movement. Now, there is a lot of FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt about cryptocurrency lately. What should we pay attention to, and what should we ignore?
Right. That is exactly where we need to put it. There's something called speculation, okay? And just about any market, and again, I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but whether you talk about real estate, whether you talk about stocks, cryptocurrencies, whatever, they're speculative. People have adopted the term, oh, it's volatile. Yes, it changes. Things go up, things go down. And when you put the focus on speculation, you're pretty much gambling. So instead of putting the focus on the gamble, on the quick payoff, on, how can I strike it rich or hit it big, the focus needs to be directed to blockchain technology, which is what cryptocurrencies or these tokens represent, the technology and how the technology is entering into the business world now and what opportunity that will open up to us.
Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. Coming up in our Global View segment, contributor Brian E. Muhammad will speak on the life and passing of Kenneth Kaunda, the first president of Zambia. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag #BankBlack social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
President Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia is being remembered and mourned as the last African giant for his contributions to the liberation of Africa.
Kenneth Kaunda was one of the last remaining African liberation heroes. He became Zambia's first president when the country gained independence from Britain in 1964. He then remained in power for 27 years. During his rule, he made Zambia a center for anti-colonial groups fighting to end white minority rule in countries like South Africa and Zimbabwe. The economy fared badly during his time in office. In 1991, he was forced to hold multi-party elections, which he lost after having become increasingly autocratic. His son died of AIDS in 1986, and he began a personal crusade against the disease.
I'm committed to this cause, not really because of my son. That's important, of course, but what is important is that this is a disease that's killing millions, especially on this continent of Africa, and we must fight it.
During his nearly 3 decades at the helm of Zambia, Kaunda said he believed in humanism, a mix, according to him, of Christian ethics, traditional African values, and socialist principles. He died aged 97, and the authorities have declared 21 days of mourning.
NNV Weekly contributor and journalist for the Final Call News, Brian E. Muhammad, is back to educate us on this and much more. Greetings, sir.
Greetings, Sister Rosalind. Thank you.
Yes, sir. President Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia is being remembered and mourned as the last African giant. For those of us who may not know his history, what were his contributions to the liberation of Africa, and how do you feel he will be remembered?
Well, Kenneth Kaunda, I would say Brother Dr. Kenneth Kaunda will be remembered as one of the greatest that ever did it in terms of the liberation struggle of African people. He was the first president after the independence of Zambia. He was one of the leaders that won the independence from white minority rule of what was then called Northern Rhodesia, and which was a offshoot of the British Empire. And he organized and he fought, and he will go into history as one of those giants among those such as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. These are the great ones. These are the ones that broke the yoke of colonialism, broke the hold of the European on these African nations and African peoples. Kenneth Kaunda in Southern Africa, when I say Southern Africa, I'm talking about those countries such as Zambia, Angola, South Africa, or Tanzania, which is the proper name for South Africa. These countries, Zimbabwe, Botswana, all of these in Southern Africa. Well, it was his work and his struggle that won Zambia, and then he didn't just stop. He wasn't satisfied with the freedom of his people. He fought for the freedom of all of those countries in that region. And in fact, he was, his role and why he was hated so much by the West was because when, for example, in South Africa under apartheid, when they banned Nelson Mandela's party, the ANC, the African National Congress, when that was banned and it was illegal, and they put Nelson Mandela in jail, and he was in jail, as we know, for all those years. Well, they banned his party. So the people who worked with him had to seek refuge. And it was Kenneth, it was this president that opened the door of Zambia. Dr. Kaunda gave them political refuge. Dr. Kaunda gave them training in armed struggle and guerrilla warfare to fight the enemies in their respective countries. And he did that for basically all of those nations, because all of the people who they were subjected to took that same move in these various countries in Southern Africa. And so we say he's the last giant because he was the last living one, and from that age. Kwame Nkrumah is gone. Gamal Nasser is gone. We know Robert Mugabe from Zimbabwe, gone. See, he was the last one, and at 97 years old, nearly 100 years old, and we'll talk about why he lasted so long, which is one of the things he's famous for. He ate well. He ate vegetables and fruits, basically, very careful about what he put in his system. That's why that part in the beginning when you saw him running to the stage, that was at Nelson Mandela's funeral. And he was getting ready to speak, and now he was 89 years old then. And when he got up those stairs, then he paced those few steps from there to the podium. He was strong like that because he took care of himself, which is a lesson for those of us that struggle today. We must take care of ourselves for the longevity.
That's right.
But he's going to be remembered as a great one, and we'll be talking about him because there's a whole lot to say about his contribution, even after he left power.
Right. Now, in the Final Call news, he is being honored, placing him on the cover of the latest edition of the newspaper. Tell us why it's important for the Final Call to recognize President Kaunda in such a way.
Only the Final Call can do this properly. Because if we were about selling newspapers, then we would not put an African head of state that maybe those who may buy our papers on the streets of America, for the most part, may not know, unless you lived in that time. See, he did, and because we have such a visionary publisher by the name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he gives honor for those who live their lives and sacrifice their lives for the betterment of other people. So that's why you see Dr. Kaunda on the cover of the Final Call newspaper. That's why we saw when His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings died, we saw the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan placed him on the cover of our newspaper because he served, not just because he served the Nation of Islam, but because he served the rise of Black people all over the world, starting with his own people in Ghana in Rawlings' case, and of course, now we're talking about Zambia. And we did the same thing, obviously, for Nelson Mandela. And the sentiment of the Minister Farrakhan, we will always do that. He deserves a cover because of what he did. If we really understand the level of sacrifice that these kind of men made, then we will be shouting their names, and we will be making sure that their names are remembered, just like we remember the names of the great worthies of old, of the prophets and the messengers. Because these are the men.
Speaking of that, would you talk to us really quickly about President Kaunda as a freedom fighter? What was he like?
Uncompromisingly black.
Okay.
Uncompromisingly black. Some of these pictures will probably show him with this signature handkerchief in his hand that he always had with him. But don't let that fool you. He was a fighter, uncompromising, and he was the one, again, that fought for the liberation of that region of Southern Africa and helped out in other areas even after he left power. He was the president in Zambia since 1964 until 1991. But he didn't just leave office and ride off into the sunset. He continued to serve the interests of black people all over Africa and black people all over the world. And so he deserves the kind of honor that he is getting, and certainly our people in this current generation. You want to know about Black Lives Matter? You want to know about the kind of things that you're now doing on the streets of America and all over the world? It is the Kenneth Kaundas that really showed that you can win against the most recalcitrant of enemies. And he did this.
Now, President Kaunda's death and his work both raise important questions about the work of the Nation of Islam globally. I got about a minute or so, but what can you tell us that propelled the Nation of Islam onto the global stage?
Well, first of all, what propelled us, we've always been global. Going all the way back to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we've always been international. But in today's reality, what really propelled us, where the minister has the stature that he has, he was already known throughout the world. But the Million Man March, when heads of state saw this theme of responsibility, atonement, and whatnot, and all of the troubles they were having in their nations and in their regions, they began to call on the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan to come help them in their issues. And he began to be viewed more as a head of state than a leader of black people or a leader of the Nation of Islam. They began to allow him access to what they had access to as heads of states, because that's what they viewed him as, because of the blessing of the Million Man March. So that's what propelled us on the level that he is working on now. But there's a whole backstory to all of that, of course, that even goes before the Million Man March.
Right. Now, Brother Brian, we're going to get to some more of that backstory in just a few moments. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. And when we return, we'll discuss the Nation of Islam's impact around the world in more detail. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Alyssa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, viewed as a head of state internationally, has traveled with the Nation of Islam to various continents for peace missions and as a part of his global work.
Yes, this is Rosalind. Yeah, let me say this on that.
Yes, sir.
He, the minister has done so much for people around the world. Things behind the scenes that people just don't know about because the minister doesn't talk about it. He has a principle that he gives to those who travel with him and in his own travels to these areas where he, right out of the Holy Quran, that's where the minister always says, from the verse of the Holy Quran that says, and do no favors, seeking gain. See? So the minister's global travels, which goes back to, again, the death of Kenneth Kaunda. See, because the way the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan remembered Kenneth Kaunda was such a man like that he did what he did without seeking gain. And the success, which we'll talk about as well, of Kenneth Kaunda is the same as the success as of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is born from a principled position that I'm not here to take from you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you solve the problems of your people, that your people can have the best life that they can have, whether it's on the African continent or suffering, oppressed people anywhere around the world. So that's why you hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speak about the brothers and sisters in Myanmar. You hear him speak, you hear him speak about the problem that has to be looked into among the Uyghurs in China. You hear him speak out for the Palestinian people. You hear him, warn the nations of the world against its oppressive actions against these people, because he is ultimately a warner from God for the world. So the minister, in all of his travels, and I've been blessed to have been on a few of these, the third world friendship tour that he did, which was a wonderful experience, a learning experience. But what it taught me was that we are a nation within a nation, and we have one who is qualified to be a head of state, to interact, because at the end of the day, he has been given what he's been given from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that ultimately will save the whole world if they will but listen, if they would just take heed to what he's saying.
Now, as you just mentioned that you have been able to travel with the minister, can you tell us about some of the first international trips taken for the minister's global work?
Well, for me personally, I was blessed to be the assistant to his international representative and his advisor on Africa and all of that, brother student minister Akbar Muhammad. And in that work, I was blessed to travel to many places. I think my very first, I would say, political conference, would have been in Uganda for the 7th Pan-African Congress. of course, they allowed me to work in Ghana in the Nation of Islam's Ghana mission, where I was for about 7 years of my life working. And you know, again, under the tutelage of Akbar, of Brother Akbar Muhammad. And so there's so many experiences, you know, so many experiences, you know. I mean, Allah blessed me to do as helping my brother and my mentor in his help of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. See, and it's just been and it gave me again a first glimpse that we are bigger than our work here. But our work here is the base for our work throughout the globe. Now we're in London, as you know. You know, we're in France. We're in different parts of the world. We're all throughout the Caribbean, you know. So this work is universal. This work is universal, and the whole world is looking for a change. And as the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has always said, that we are now living at a time of the intense cry for a universal cry for justice, which is where all of our people throughout the world is looking for. And that's why the Kenneth Kaundas are born. The Kwame Nkrumahs were born. The Muammar Gaddafi's was born. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's and the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. These men are born into a cry. And this is where we're at. As we're taught, an old world going out, a new world coming in. So the minister has to be a man that can deal with the problems of the world, because he's an intricate part of the new world being brought in by God himself. And the people out there can take that or leave it alone. I would hope they would take it before they leave it alone.
They will take it. I hope so too. Now, Dr. Kaunda was an advisor and a counselor with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on at least 2 peace missions. Can you tell us about one of those missions?
Yeah, I would say with one was the Sudan. In the country of Sudan in North Africa, which is the largest country by land mass on the African continent, they were having a civil war, if we remember, that lasted for many, many years between the north and Khartoum and the south of Sudan, which of course eventually had become their own state now, their own country, South Sudan. Well, when they were going through that problem, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was asked to go and check and see if he can lend a voice to solving or bringing about a peace between the North and the South Sudan. And this is where he met Kenneth Kaunda. Kenneth Kaunda had counseled him before him going to meet with the rebel group at that time, led by a man named John Garang.
Okay.
And they even came to an agreement that and before they can put that agreement into place, this government, the United States government, and its ugly foreign policy and its hatred for the Nation of Islam being involved on that level in the world, they blocked it. Even though the minister was blessed to bring about a peace deal, a peace initiative that they agreed on, until the enemy, this devil, does what he does to step in and interfere. So that's one. That's one that Kenneth Kaunda counseled the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on, and the minister was very much successful in that mission. The other one, there's another one that he dealt with, was the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been suffering what the world calls the African World War because of the amount of nations that has been involved in that conflict. Well, the minister was involved in trying to bring peace there. And Kenneth Kaunda was also involved in counseling the minister on that one as well as other heads of states that was involved in those talks.
Perfect. Now, earlier in our segment, you mentioned Brother Abdul Akbar Muhammad. Can you tell us about the international missions that the minister and his international representative, Brother Abdul, have been a part of globally, and what were some of the accomplishments of that work?
Oh, it was so many. I mean, they've been companions and friends going back to the 1960s, of course. But on these in terms of internationally, you know, when you hear the Honorable Minister Farrakhan give the history of how he was, after the Nation of Islam took a fall, as we say, he was traveling the world, looking at what was next for him, you know, and Brother Akbar was with him. He was with him in all those journeys overseas. But there were so many, it's hard to say, because you're talking about 3 World Friendship Tours, several peace missions, some known and some unknown. You know, you saw him there with Nelson Mandela, and that was, I think that was taken from the 2nd World Friendship Tour. There are the 1st World Friendship Tour, 2nd one. And there's so many. There's so many. And then, of course, you know, when it came time to have somebody to be on the ground, to organize the work of the Nation of Islam on the ground in Africa, it was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that asked his friend and brother Akbar to go and do that, and he did that. But there were so many, it's hard to say, you know, because he's been on all of them, really. Those 2 that I just mentioned, you know, particularly those 2.
Right. Yeah. Brother Brian, thank you again for joining us this week and bringing your insight on this subject and helping us to understand what Dr. Kenneth Kaunda meant to Africa and also to the Nation of Islam. We look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Thank you, sister. May Allah bless you all.
Thank you. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. After the break, for the Engine of the Nation report, we will interview Alyssa Ward, a cut flower farm owner in New Jersey. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline is dedicated to a champion in the liberation struggle. As Africa and the Black world are honoring the late Kenneth Kaunda, a hero of the struggle to free the motherland, a longtime statesman and leader in efforts to move Africa forward. Zambia's founding president recently departed this life at age 97. This remembrance and tribute includes a special message by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan regarding one of the giants of Africa. This FCN Volume Number 38 edition middle page article is entitled The judgment of Allah has entered America. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune into the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call Cover Report.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
Established in 2012 and opened to the public in 2019, Ward's Farm is a cut flower farm that invites its patrons to take part in their very popular Pick Your Own event, where you can pick your own sunflowers.
I'm Alyssa Ward.
And I'm Alan Ward.
And we are the owners of Ward's Farm, New Jersey,
a cut flower farm in Salem County. We grow cut flowers and sunflowers and specialize in dahlias and sunflowers.
And we open to the public for pick your own sunflowers and pumpkins in the fall. So being a black farmer to me just means that I'm a farmer. This is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing with my husband. I know to other people, I might be someone that they can look up to, and I hope that I could be someone that they look up to. If you look online or Google farming or how to get started, you might see a lot of people that look like my husband, but I want to be someone that people like me can look at and say, you know what? She looks like me, and maybe this means that I can do this too. We're not doing the work. We're not out here. We're not the flowers, but we planted them and we help nourish them to grow. That is really cool. If anyone has any questions or wants to start growing something of their own, feel free to follow us on social media or stop by when we have one of our Pick Your Own events. I hope that what I do and what we do here on the farm could be an inspiration to others that look like me.
Joining us is Miss Alyssa Ward. Thank you for joining us. Greetings.
Thank you so much for having me, Rosalind.
Yes, ma'am. What exactly is a cut flower farm?
So a cut flower farm is a farm that grows flowers specifically to be cut. So we grow many different kinds of flowers, and they're to be cut to put in vases or to have at events or to sell wholesale.
Oh, perfect. Can you name a few of the flowers that you grow on your farm? I saw in the clip that one of the biggest ones that we see was sunflowers. Is there anything else that you grow there?
Yeah, so we grow hundreds of thousands of sunflowers, but we also grow dahlias, celosia, zinnias, straw flowers, gomphrena, tulips, gladiolas, a whole bunch of flowers.
Now, we've recently spoken with other farmers, and one of the things that we learned over the past year was that COVID has had an effect on their food crops. Did COVID have an effect on your flowers?
Honestly, last year we were blooming, pun intended. We had so many people that came to visit the farm for Pick Your Own last summer. And I really think it's because everyone was cooped up in their homes in the springtime of last year. So in the summertime, when we opened up, we had so many people come to the farm, and it was an outlet for people. They got to spend time outside. They had fun. They got to see their friends because we have acres of farmland. And so they can come out and still be able to social distance and have fun and see their friends.
Perfect. Now, you've also opened your space to the public for events. What type of events do you hold or have you held at your space?
Yes, so we refer to our Pick Your Own events as events. And so on the weekends, on Saturday and Sundays, and usually 1 or 2 days during the week, we host our Pick Your Own events. And that's when we're open to the public, where they can come and pick their own sunflowers and take them home with them.
Oh, perfect. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Where did you get the inspiration to become a cut flower farmer?
Sure. So my husband and I started growing vegetables. We would have our vegetables out on just a small stand in front of our home. And we grew flowers for ourselves because we just like to see them in our yard. And we had an abundance of them. So we would also put them out on the stand with the vegetables, and we would come home from work and notice that the vegetables were still there, but all the flowers were gone because everyone loved the flowers. And so we're like, we should maybe just do flowers. And so we started doing our favorites, which were sunflowers and dahlias, and that we kind of shifted into just doing all flowers and all cut flowers.
Oh, okay. Now, do you have any experiences with flowers growing up that kind of inspired you, or that you reach back to reflect on when you select which varieties you're wanting to grow?
So not necessarily with selecting the ones that we do grow. I grew up having a garden. My mom has her gardens at my home, at her home, like the house that I grew up in. She's always out in her garden, making it look beautiful. So I grew up spending time with her out there. And my husband, his grandparents owned land out in Minnesota, and they farmed everything that you can think of. They had thousands and thousands of acres. They had horses, they had animals, they had crops. And so he was around that kind of farming. I was around gardening, and we just enjoy looking at flowers. So it kind of just makes sense for us to do cut flowers.
Mm-hmm. Now, you currently have a number of varieties at your farm. Now, are there any varieties that you're looking to add in the near future?
Yes, so we are really interactive with our customers and the guests that come to pick your owns. So on Facebook, on Instagram, we always ask what we can do for them, what more we can bring to the farm. And back in the springtime, we asked what our visitors would like to see, what other flowers they wanted us to have. And we got a list of different flowers that we don't currently grow. So this summer, we did actually add ranunculus and anemones to the flowers that we grow. And that came from suggestions that we got on Instagram. And we are going to start growing eucalyptus in the fall. And we're always going to be adding other perennials that we see fit to be cut flowers.
Perfect. Now, do you take donations? And if so, how can we reach you to do that?
Yeah, so our website is wardsfarmnj.com, and our Instagram is as well, wardsfarmnj.
MJ.com. Thank you so much. I want to make sure that we got that again. Can you mention that one more time? Wards Farm,
yes.
The link. Mm-hmm.
So our website is wardsfarmnj.com.
Okay. All right. Thank you again for joining us, Miss Alyssa Ward. I look forward to seeing, you're welcome. I look forward to seeing what's growing on the farm over the summer.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into National Network View News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Rosalind Parks with National Network View News. Good night.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.